Yo, 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 what's up, rockers? Oh, what's happening? Had a little trouble getting on the old hotel Wi Fi, so I'm a few minutes late. Trials and tribulations of the road. I'm in Las Vegas. Good times. Did an intense period of rehearsals. I think since I've last seen you. Jeez, I don't even know. Was I already rehearsing when I last saw you? Maybe I was. I can't remember. Um, we then rehearsals in LA, did music rehearsals there, and then came here to do production rehearsals, and with the full lights and the whole 9 yards and all that. And gigs start on Wednesday, I think, is the first show. So we'll be in Kentucky on Wednesday, and then Nashville a couple days after that. And yeah, sounding awesome. Are you going to check out U2? Yeah, I know. I mean, I would love to. I didn't find it. I've been like working so hard that I haven't had time to pretty much do anything. So when I get done work, I just get a little food and wind down and then go to bed pretty much. Yesterday I was there till, I don't know, probably 9:30 or something. So the show, I saw friends of mine there were posting stuff. It looks unbelievable. So, they're playing this residency or whatever at the Sphere, which is the crazy, LED panel extravaganza, but it looks really unbelievable. I saw multiple people say it's the best show they've ever seen, and evidently the PA in the Sphere is behind the screen. So I mean, the whole place is a screen, but the PA is all back there, so you don't see anything. It's completely unique and really kind of amazing looking. So everybody said it's both sounded and looks incredible. So pretty awesome. I put out my video for the IRX preamp pedal this week from Friedman. That thing is pretty great, I think, and should come in handy for a lot of people. I wonder if anybody's had a chance to check one out yet. I saw a lot of people getting them and plugging them in and posting stuff about it and all that. So that's pretty cool. U2 are decent apart from the rhythm section and singer. See, I love the drummer and bass player. I don't know. I think they're awesome. And I mean, what can you say about U2? I mean, here's the thing about U2. They're a band in the sense, that the Beatles were a band with all the same members the whole time they were a band together. They've never changed. It's pretty rare when you get a band that stays together that long and is still those members, and you can go see them and there's those songs and they sound like the band. They have their sound and they exist in their own. I've great respect for them, great respect for what they've accomplished, and I like some of their music. I think they, I mean, they've at times probably been overexposed or something, and the victims of that, when people get too, I don't know, you know what I mean? Just a little too in your, like, maybe I guess for some people that it can seem like a little bombastic or something, like, or a little in your face. Or I think maybe when they really, suffered some criticism is when the with iTunes or whatever, when their new album just showed up in your account or whatever, which wouldn't even be a big deal now. But I remember that being really controversial back. Like, it was like they were giving it to you, and it was like kind of being, I think that some people felt like it was being forced upon them. So I think then they started suffering a little backlash and stuff, and maybe that wasn't the best thing for them or whatever. But now it would seem like, who would care? Because it's like you get everything for free anyway, because everybody signed up for some streaming thing, and that's how they watch and listen to everything. So, kind of funny when I think about it in retrospect. Okay. Who else we got here? Elkin, greetings, Pete. Have you tried the Bella with the Hedgehog cabinet? I like the Hedgehog cabinet. It's got 65, so it's different. I mean, I don't know that I've ever played. I have a Bella combo, so I've never tried the Bella head into a Hedgehog cabinet. But probably great. I mean, I'm not sure about this, but they're both somewhat Dumble inspired, I think. So the Hedgehog, which I think is a really nice amplifier, probably sound pretty similar, clean to the Bella. But no, I mean, long story short, I haven't tried that particular combo. But it's a classic, like a Dumbly thing into 65s seems to be one of the preferred speakers for that style of amp. I do like that cabinet, like the Sir open back. I have a couple of them. I have that one, and then I have another one that has Austin Speakerworks 55 hertz G12H30 style speakers in it, kind of the Hendrixy style speaker. That cabinet sounds really good. I haven't used it in quite a while. Matter of fact, the last time I probably used it was the last show I ever played with Chris Cornell. I played 2 PT100s, and I thought for this particular show, maybe what I should do is try a closed back cabinet and an open back cabinet. So I used that Hedgehog cabinet for that show with a PT100, and it sounded really good. It just spread around the stage nice, having one open back and one closed back. I thought it was kind of a neat thing. But I never did it again. I don't know why. What's my favorite Kemper profile? It's been a minute since I've used the Kemper, but I remember, I mean, like Michael Britt always doing pretty solid ones, As a matter of fact, the musical director and other guitar player as well as keyboard player in this Nick Carter band that I'm playing with right now is using Kemper, and he was looking for some patches, and I said, no, Michael Britt ones are great. He said, oh yeah, I've tried those. Maybe I'll get a couple of those. And then he started using them the other day, and it sounded significantly better. He wasn't happy with what he was using, so he changed to the Britt profiles. He found a Marshall he liked, and I think, I'm not sure if he had Matchless or something, but he found a couple he really liked. And he's got it pretty healthy in there's side fills on this gig, which is really nice. It's not just an inner gig. We've got a healthy amount of side fill going. Like I could definitely play if I took my inners out. I can hear everything through the sides. It's great. So, I can hear him through the sides real good, and it sounded so much more warm. And Michael just his profiles were always really, they lean on the Nashville side of things because he's that kind of guy. But that's not a bad thing, I don't think, at all live. Sometimes, so in other words, they're a little darker and warmer, I find, than some, but maybe not, for aggressive metal or something, and maybe you're not going to go, to his profiles, but for rock and for, country, or for a lot of different kinds of music, Michael's profiles just seem to work really well, I think. So it's I always recommend his. They're a good, surefire, quick fix if you want to get a good sound that is really balanced and well recorded. I mean, captured. I mean, or profiled, whatever. Kemper I can't keep up. The captures, the profiles. Yeah. Have you guys out there tried his? Anybody out there tried his? Anybody with Kempers? Juan says your understanding of Van Halen got me here. Well, it's a long, never-ending journey where we always, it's funny. All the I got together the other day with James Santiago and Blue Saraceno over something that I can't tell you about yet, but we we were hanging, and it was really fun. And of course, all things we end up talking about Van Halen because they're both Van Halen aficionados as well, and stuff. And it's just funny. All roads, in many ways, seem to return to Eddie, so it's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, Christopher says he loves the Joshua Tree. I agree. I think Joshua Tree is really great. I saw their Joshua Tree. That's the only time I've ever seen them live. I only saw them once. It was probably 4 years ago or something. 5 years ago now. 4 years ago, on the Joshua Tree tour that they did, where they were, kind of celebrating that album. And I saw it at the Rose Bowl in LA, and it was pretty phenomenal. I really liked it. My knees hurt says he never got into them, but because he was all into metal. And I was kind of like that too. I mean, I was more of a hard rock guy, but I did appreciate, if you notice on Instagram, I put up a little clip of us jamming a Cure song yesterday at rehearsal, because Nick's all good with he's very into live streaming. And I mean, I'll say this about Nick, he's fearless. He sang a couple things with us, maybe once or maybe not at all even. And his first time through, he was on TikTok and and Instagram, and just, okay, let's play it, and then he just goes for it, and he maybe hasn't even sung the song with us yet. It's like, really, I'm like, wow, I've never seen anybody do that before. Like, they're not at all. He's just like, I got this. And yeah. So anyway, if you watch my uh, Instagram reel that I put up late last night, it's us jamming "Love Song" by The Cure. And so I was like an AC/DC and Van Halen kid and everything, but I always liked The Cure, and I always liked Depeche Mode, and I liked U2, and I liked all this other stuff too. It had great guitar in it and really good melodies. It all comes because I'm a Beatles kid originally. I mean, that was my first thing was Beatles, and it always comes back to that. So I was never overly. So I always appreciated different genres and different other things that were going on because um, that was the Beatles to me. They were so many different things. There was so much going on with the Beatles. You had really eclectic. Everything from American, rock and roll Dizzy Miss Lizzy stuff to like full on vaudeville, like Maxwell's Silver Hammer or something. And so it was so all over the map that I was just used to that. So I wasn't very like closed off to listening to other things. So anyway, it was fun to jam that Cure song yesterday and record it. And it's a great guitar part and cool tone and stuff, using modulation and a buttload of delay and stuff. And it's fun. God, my contacts are bugging me today. Sorry. Van Boingo says, great to see you. I haven't seen you in 3 weeks. Good to see you too. Nice to have you here. There's a super chat there I'm going to grab. Let me do that. And then I got to grab my power adapter for my computer because I forgot to plug it in, and it'll eventually power out here. Regarding effect loops, I'm currently doing the Andy Timmons setup using one amp as a main and another as a slave into the loop return. Okay. Yeah. Got it. Is there so using one amp as a main, so are you is there a way to use the front of each amp and still loop? And then it looks like you got cut off. Not really. There's not really a way to use the front end of each amp. I mean, if you're using Andy, I don't think really uses, like, he's all pedals these days, I think. So you could go into a loop return, or you can just go in the front if you're running the amp clean. Sometimes it sounds better to go into the front, even with your time-based effects, if you're basically playing clean and using pedals for your gain tones. If you're using, like right now, what I'm doing is, main head, tone generator, effects send out to my effects that are my time-based stuff. And then I'm coming stereo back one side to that amp's return and then into the second amp return. I'm not sure if that's what you mean that Andy's doing. I don't think he's doing that, but maybe he is. I love doing that, but then I'm only using the preamp of one of the amplifiers, So yeah, you can't really use the preamp of both and get different sounds. When I wanted to do that, I'm just going to grab my adapter here. When I wanted to do that, I ended up adding one of those Egnator preamp, 4 channel jobbies and a switcher, and then I could have more preamp stuff going on. Different style preamps and stuff, and I would switch to them. Now, with the if you wanted to do that, like you just want more sounds, there's Synergy. I mean, you could use one of those Synergy Syn 1 modules and add that to your rig, and then you can actually switch between your amp's front end and the Synergy module's front end. There'd probably be a way to do that and incorporate it into your rig. But tell me a little bit more about what you're trying to do, and I'll see if I can help further. What's your go-to finish for a Floyd? Oh, geez. Never really thought about it, to be honest. I mean, I have a few guitars with Floyds. My modern has a Goto. There's an original Floyd on my old black. I like them when they do look aged. Like, I love the 80s ones that, I would say, like you say, maybe nickel because they age nicely. That makes sense to me because I like the look of the one on my black kind of Particicaster with the tortoise guard and the single bridge humbucker. I like when the fine tuners get all faded, when they almost go brass looking or something, that like they used to on some Floyds. I have a black Floyd original on my Jackson. But yeah, I guess nickel over chrome, probably, if you want it to age. That sounds like it makes sense to me. Um, sounds like a pretty good take. Oh, Michael Nielsen makes incredible camper profiles. Yeah, Michael's got great taste, and for hard rock and stuff, he'd probably be the guy to go to. You know, that could be a good call for sure. I'm trying to use the front end of each amp and still use the effect loop as stereo. There's probably a way you could do it, but not without incorporating a switcher, is my answer. You'd have to have a way to get into, I mean, it would be complicated and maybe not. Is the juice worth the squeeze sort of thing? I don't think so. Like, you want to incorporate all the different channels to get different sounds and stuff. It's just complicated. And not only that, there's maybe potential phase issues and stuff like that. It just seems like maybe it'd be a little too, what are the two amps? Like, what's the sound you're trying to achieve? Maybe a better way to do it, incorporating like synergy or something. Yeah, Mike says, yes, if you're willing to spend $1,000. Yeah, you'd have to get like an RJM or something and use the loops and stuff like that to loop in the preamps of both amps. Yeah, like Michael says, your 4 cable, the preamps and a loop switcher, doing it for years with RJM. Exactly what I just said. Look at that. Aren't we just on the same page in I said synergy. In synergy, you and I. Yeah, you could do that, but man, it gets to be kind of like, I've gone the other way with this stuff, to be honest. Like, 3 master volumes is enough for me to deal with on my amp, on the PT100. I don't want to deal with more channel. I used to do this basically by using, like I say, an Egnator 4-channel. What was it called? The M4. And then I had all the 4 modules with a recto, a basement, I think a Vox one, and a plexi or something in there. And then I had that in addition to the 3 channels of my PT100. And I actually did that for a few years. It was like, when I think back about it, I had, because each of those modules, you could have 2 channels on the Egnator preamp. Each one had a master volume, right? You'd have to set the tone on, like, so that's like 8 channels of preamp there, 8 masters, plus the 3 masters in my PT100. 11 masters. Like, trying to get the volumes the same in between every preset was like, every day at soundcheck was like, banging through all the different things and matching and it was like a nightmare, all this flexibility, but geez, like, too much flexibility. So kind of funny, but so I don't recommend it, but maybe the most I would do is like one. The synergy modules really remind me of the Egnator. It was very similar. I mean, the concept, it was a preamp module, and there's 2 channels in those. So maybe you could add a Syn 1 to the rig or something and do it that way. Or yeah, I guess you just get the RGM switcher and do what you want to do with your 2 amps, but then you're incorporating a switcher, and it's somewhat complicated. Okay, can you explain when you would get phasing issues with wet, dry, wet? Sure. I'm running SD3000 EVH with H90 kill dry parallel for recording, and it sounds great. Yeah, well, if you're in kill dry, you're not going to have any problems. What you want to do is turn off all the effects and then bring in the wet channels. If you're not, you say you're recording with it, so is it like you're running 3 cabinets and you're miking them all? Or are you just blending the effects and then sending those with kill dry to 2 channels in your recording interface or something? I'd need more information. But when you would have problems is when you're using, say, the SDE3000 in DSP mode, and then you're running into it and a power amp and 2 cabinets, and having some dry in the sides, because now you'd have it slightly delayed because of the latency, slight latency because of ADD converters. You would have a slight latency in the outer cabinets, and then that would sound like really comb filtery and not good. So basically, what you want to do when you're checking for phase, when you're using stuff, is turn off all the effect, like just turn the mix to 0, but have the thing on, and then pull the channels up and listen to if it starts sounding like the tone radically changes. It shouldn't. It should just sound like the tone just gets louder and imaging. So, that's how you'll know though. It should sound big, fat, full, louder, no tone change, basically. Unless you're using different kinds of speakers in the outer cabinets or something. Um, but that's how you know. It's phasing's very obvious. It'll sound comb filtery or really thin all of a sudden when the cabinets are at the same level. When you're checking for phase, if you have 100%, which they never are, but if they're 100% out of phase, what would happen is, let's say you were miking two cabinets, two amplifiers, and they were isolated in another room, and you had a mic on each, and the amps were out of phase. If you pulled the faders up so that the gains were exactly the same on the two faders, and you're listening through your console with both of them panned center, the sound would start getting thinner and thinner and thinner as you pulled one up. And if it was 100% out of phase, which I say it never is completely, but if it's 100% out of phase, the sound would actually disappear completely. There'd be nothing there. And then as you pulled the other one up louder and louder beyond the other one, the sound would start to get comb filtery and weird again, and then come back. So that's what phase is: cancellation, basically, when it comes down to what we hear it as. You're canceling a bunch of frequencies. And you don't want that. You want all the frequencies in both the signals, right? So yeah, so it's kind of a neat thing. Here's a little trick I'll give you that I learned from Steve Stevens. Learned this, I think, from Billy Idol's producer many years ago in the 80s. But here's an interesting thing. Phase with microphones, like when microphones are out of phase, so you want to say a 57 and a ribbon or something, and if one's a little further from the amp, it'll sound comb filtery and weird. Here's a way to get the microphones as in phase as possible. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll have your amplifier on a high gain thing, or just turn on a distortion pedal or something, but you don't play through it. You just turn it up so there's a bunch of hiss coming through the speaker. And do not play, because you'll go deaf doing this. Go into the room where the microphones in the cabinet is, if it's a separate room, and put on headphones and turn up both the mic signals in the headphones really loud. But you're not playing guitar. Once again, this is why you go deaf if you play. Don't let anybody play, because you're just listening to the hiss, the high gain hiss, right? Knock one of the channels out of phase for the mic, and then start pulling the mics around back and forth. Maybe have one, say the 57, where you always like it, and then move the other one. And you knock one of the channels out of phase. And when the mics are actually in phase, because you've electronically knocked it out of phase on the channel with the switch, all of a sudden the hiss disappears. It's cool, right? So like, you just move the mic around, and it's going to sound like it's so stupid, but yeah, that's what it's going to sound like. And then it's going to go, if you keep moving that mic forward, it'll go I'm such an idiot, but that's exactly what it'll do. And then you kick the phase switch back off again on that channel, and that's when the mics are aligned as close as possible. Cool, right? It's an old producer trick that I've actually done, and it works really, really, really well. And then you'll sound nice and fat, Are you guys playing to a click and running tracks? A little bit, yeah, a little bit of stuff that's in the but it's a click. Things are, but some stuff we're off. Are we off? Yeah, we're totally off on a few things, because we added a few things, and it's just fun to play like wide open. So there's actually like a tune that I start, and I just start at whatever tempo I want to, and then we come in and play it out, and it's cool. It's fun. So I think that's going to surprise a lot of people. It's like some really interesting tunes in there. So pretty cool. Yeah. Christopher says, I've already spent, I think, thousands of dollars. So what's another thousand? Well, if you want to get an RJM, look into RJM switchers. They'll do what you want. Yeah. They'll get you where you need to go. Robert Smith is such an underrated guitarist. Yeah, he's really cool. I think so too. I mean, I loved, some of the guitar players in the, some great tones in the 80s that aren't things that even people talk about, some great parts and stuff. And Robert Smith, certainly, cool guitar. Johnny Marr now gets his due, I feel like, I mean, he was respected, always, but even more now. So I think people realize what a badass he is. And who else that I feel like is underrated from the 80s? I mean, all the guys that played in the Pretenders, James, and the Pretenders guitar parts are so cool, and the solos and stuff. You know, I think everybody always respected Steve Stevens. He gets his due, I think, for sure. He's just a monster. My old friend Steve. Here's somebody recommending the top Jimmy Kemper profiles. Yeah, I've tried some of the Van Halen one, and I thought it was really quite good. Pretty cool, for sure. Sorry. Congestion. What else we got here? Yes, you can run 2 different amps in parallel. Need effects with stereo, I know. Mindful of ground loops, use ISO boxes where needed. That's why I just kind of let Dave Friedman build my rigs, because it's like he'll figure it all out. Where it needs to be quiet, he'll do the ISO transformers and do all the wiring. The more stuff there is, the more potential there is for problems. And, it's like if you're going to have a complicated rig, unless you're really good with soldering and can troubleshoot yourself, let someone else do it. Really like the tones from the IRX. Are you going to add this to your pedal board? There's all kinds of uses I can think of. Like, it's not dissimilar to the way one would use a Tonex, right? It's just a tube sort of idea of it. So for a pedal board based solution, I think it's there's definitely potential there. I almost brought it out here actually to use, because I'm going to make a few videos in the next few weeks while I'm out here. I've got to get some pedal videos done, some demos and stuff. So I thought I'll use it in the hotel room. But then I thought, I do a lot of pedal demos with already using my plugin, my PT100 plugin. So, because it's great for certain things, I use it all the time. For example, probably in the latest video I did for Strymon, the Brigadier video, that's my plugin, I think, that I used in that. So it works great for delay videos and reverb and anything. It just sounds really cool. So sometimes plugins are like probably better, like for, certain tones, certainly when you're doing clean things, and it's like, it's just really easy to get a great sound and a really defined sound, and things like, phasing and miking, it's not an issue anymore. It just works great. So it's like, why make this harder than it needs to be? So anyways, I didn't end up bringing it just because my suitcase was already overweight, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna do it. But did you try it yet? Yeah, I did a video for it. It's out on my channel. It's the last video I put out right before this one. You can check it out. With all the tech questions on how to run cable, it might be high time for a dry erase board for Professor Pete. Yeah, that's not a bad idea at all. Let's see. We got Joe here with a super duper chat. Thanks for the super chats, guys. Appreciate that. Do you have any advice on playing guitar and singing? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, my friend Al taught me a long time ago to learn the singing part and learn the guitar part separately. So don't try and learn them at the same time. You'll always be like fumbling a little. So get the guitar part down super solid. Get the singing down super solid, where it's just like second nature. You know all the words. You don't have to think about it. What's the next word? And then by then you're screwing up the guitar part and whatever, or where's the note go? Just get it nailed, both of them, and then put them together and do it kind of slow, play through and sing. And if you're having a problem with, matching the rhythm of the vocal with what you got to do on the guitar, you will find a point where probably most of it is, or some of it at least, isn't that hard, but there'll be one thing that crosses where there's a pick attack, and then you're singing a 16th note or an 8th note later or something, and it's weird. And that's the point where you just need to work it kind of slow, just like you would work on a riff on the guitar, and it's amazing when you find I'll give you an example for, so Chris Cornell had a song called No Such Thing on his Carry On solo album. And it was one of the songs that I had to play at my audition for him. And so the riff goes like this, 2, 3, boom, 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 boom. There's like a riff that goes like that on the guitar, kind of chromatic, climbing up the E string. and the vocal goes 2, 3. There's no such thing as nothing at all. I don't remember the notes, but it doesn't even matter. It's the rhythm thing. Doom, doom, do, go, doom, doom, boom, boo, boo, doo, boo, boo. Oh, this syncopated kind of riff with no such thing. All those are right on the downbeats, and the guitar is all syncopated. And I had to learn the one, put them together, and then play them. And I got to the point where I could do it effortlessly. If I had to do it right now, I probably couldn't do it, but I bet you I could get it back in 15 minutes. Because that night I remember learning it for the audition the next morning. I was like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to sing this part. I'm going to sing it full on and I'm going to have it. And I did, and little things like that are helpful to getting gigs, when somebody sees you step right up to the mic in an audition and go for it and stuff. So, but that's you will find the point where the guitar part and the vocal cross, they fight one another a little bit in your brain or whatever, and it's hard. And then you just work it and figure out what it is, just like phrasing in a lick that's a little funny, and you got to work it out, figure out what it is. It's the same thing, you're just doing it with your voice and the guitar at the same time, and your brain will learn how to do it, and you'll accommodate and kind of adapt, I guess is the word. Yeah, but my friend Al was so helpful with teaching me that. It was one of the most important things I ever learned, was learn them both independently. Don't try and do them at the same time. Once you got them independently and they're second nature, it's much easier to put them together and then bond and find the funny bit or bits, and you'll be able to do it. That pedal show did an episode on stereo rigs. They did touch on going into the front of both amps. It gets very complicated. It does. You have to put both amplifiers into loops on a loop switcher. The front ends. Essentially, you're treating the preamps then as almost like a pedal in a loop switcher. So you run into the loop switcher, and then just like you would patch in pedals and things in loop 1, loop 2, loop 3. Instead, you're patching in the amplifier preamp into a couple of loops. And then you're switching them in and out via the switcher, and it does get rather complicated just with grounding and stuff, but totally possible to do. Are you going to demo the new X-Trident? Yes, I started on a video for it, and I didn't finish before I left because I was just so consumed, to be honest, with material and learning and rehearsals and stuff. It was really difficult. I have a video that is completely recorded but not edited for the a new pedal from Crazy Tube Circuits, which is really cool. It's in a multi-mod delay reverb pedal that's in a small pedal housing, and it's really cool. And I got to get that done too. I recorded it. I recorded the IRX video, and I started on the Trident video, but I didn't get it finished before I left. And I did all of that in a very short period of time, while also doing 10-hour-a-day rehearsals. And so it was really nuts. That's why I sound like I'm beat up right now, because I've been working really hard for the last 2 weeks. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on. I think it's Vegas. Vegas messes with me with the AC and the dryness. It's super dry, the air, and you can feel almost like you got allergies or something, or you're getting sick when you're out here and you're not, or maybe it's just like casinos and staying out late and stuff too. Have you seen the new open source neural amp modeler by Steve Atkinson? I have not. I don't know about that. Just more stuff to check out, I guess. I run a stereo rig with 1987X with Power Station Badger 35. Okay. All FX in front. A 1987X with Power Station and Badger 35, all effects in front. Okay, tried to use the front end of both along with loops for time-based stuff. Juice was totally not worth the squeeze. Yeah, it's too complicated. If you're going to go there and you're using these, it sounds like you're using pedals and a couple amps. That's great. If you want to start incorporating preamps and different sounds, and then just get an amp like the PT100. I was using a different set. I used to use 3 amplifiers and go between them all, like a Comet 2 divided by 13s. And John Sir looked at me, he goes, why are you using all this stuff? Like, why don't you just let me make you an amp that does everything in one? I can make you something you're happy with, I think. So he did. That was the genesis of the PT100, how I started using Sir amps and that one in particular. And it just at some point, I don't know, man. I'm just like a little like my rig sounds incredible right now, but it's also even what it is fairly complex. And sometimes I wonder why I make my life complicated. Like why I don't know. It sounds amazing, but it's like as you get older, you just like want to simplify a little bit and stuff like that. That's all it is, I guess. I want to do less of the kind of the things we're talking about where we're incorporating preamps and switchers and using the front ends of it. It's just too much, and it takes me out of playing and thinking about notes and playing better and playing. Like it's all cool and everything. We're here, we talk about gear a lot and all that, but it's like there comes a point where it's like, you know, I don't know. It's different for everybody, right? Some people are like, I just plug the amp right into the guitar right into the amp. That's my thing. Or I'll use a wah pedal and nothing else. And then there's like the Edges guitar rig. There's everything. And I guess it's different for everybody. Your tolerance for all that kind of stuff. So, discuss amongst yourselves. Effects loops are weird in some amps. My Saldana loop was a nightmare. Yeah, they were not the best on the original ones. The new ones have a proper loop. But I use a strange method to bring live, a line level shifter back and forth. Yeah, that'll work. DSO, what's that? DI and Vertex Boost for the active buffer. Yeah, you can do that. I mean, it's a line level loop. That's the thing. And some loops just need buffers. And, that's the thing that John does well in the and SIRS is the loop is always properly buffered and you can run long cable lengths. You don't get lost. And it's, you make them as quiet as possible and all that stuff. And it's like, but you can kind of do it. You can get there with some external boxes sometimes, if you use buffers on both ends and line level shifters and all this. It's like pain in the ass though, right? Yeah. Did you try running the Friedman IRX through the front of an amp? Front of an amp? No, I wouldn't do that. I don't think. I mean, you could do it. I mean, it's sure you could do it. If you set the EQ to be relatively flat, whatever that is. Sometimes that means like if you look at the instructions of like the character series from Tech 21 or the pedals they make, and they sometimes suggest how to set an amp's preamp to be as flat as possible, like turn the mids on 10 and the bass and the treble on 0 or something like that. There's a very strange setting, but when you do that with one of their amp modelers, it sounds the most like you're just plugging into a power amp. But no, I would just plug it into an effect return. There's quite a few videos, I think, out of people doing that, plugging them into power stations and stuff now, because a lot of people bought them and, just did that stuff right away. Yeah. Hobo says he used Little Labs IBPs to pull stuff out of phase just a little. Then I use tremolo to make them dance. That's cool. I mean, yeah, when you pull things out of phase, it can lend an interesting tone for sure. And then, it's not a sound you probably want to use all the time, but it can be interesting. And then, yeah, especially if you then pan things and then have drum, it's very big sounding. And it's just the comb filtery thing for a straight up guitar sound is weird. For an affected thing, you can get some interesting sounds, for sure. Yeah. Even Satriani and Vi gave up on Wet Dry Wet because of phase issues, particularly in unknown situations like TV appearances. Exactly. When you get into a TV show, because I had this exact same thing too, they don't know what to do if you're running Wet Dry Wet, and especially if you're just running in the outer cabinets, in the effect cabs. If you're just running effects, it confuses engineers, and it definitely confuses engineers at TV shows, because they'll look at the outer cabs and they'll see that they're quiet. They're looking at the meter. They're not listening with their ears. They're like looking at the meters and they're like, why are these cabinets so quiet? I should bring those up, and then they're pulling up your delays or, rotary or whatever the hell you got going on out there. And it messes up the sound completely. They don't know what to do with it. It's why a stereo rig is for me just fine. I'm very, very happy with running stereo, and it sounds insane in my in-ears. It's just like, all the dimension and everything, but there's no mystery. It's just like, just turn them both up and hard pan them. It's amazing how many times I get into, sessions or new gigs or whatever. And I send people both cabinets and they just pan them center. Like, I mean, monitor guys are fun. You have to tell everybody, like, it's stereo, hard pan, or at least image them somewhat. If some people want my guitar, pan him to the left. Well, that means maybe leave the left channel totally hard panned and then bring the right up to about 2 o'clock, and the image will start shifting, that way. It's always funny to me when it's like, that it's often not the case that they understand that you're, if I was I don't know, I'm not being, I'm not trying to be, but it's just if I was looking at a rig, I would stand in front of it and listen to it. If I was an engineer, and I would go, what's going on here? Oh, wow. Okay. When I'm standing in front of it, those delays are bouncing around. This guy's running stereo. You check it out, right? And listen, and ascertain what's going on with what they're trying to achieve. But that isn't always the case. Sometimes it is, so it's just kind of funny. But yeah. Okay, 212 watching with only 79 likes. Yeah, we got 284 on now. That's not too bad. It's not too bad. Let's see. I wonder if there's a plugin that does this hiss-based phase trick. We don't really need a plugin. You just can do it by flipping the phase, on, like, there's multiple different ways to flip the phase. Generally on an interface, like on UA interfaces, you get a phase flip in console. If you just do it on the channel in Logic, you can just insert a gain plugin under the helper menu. There's a gain plugin. You just put that in the plugin slot, hit the phase button. It's just a volume and a phase. That's all that's there. So I guess that's kind of the plugin you're talking about. But or at least sort of a way to do it. But okay, I've been really enjoying the HG 3000 stereo. It's so good, man. Yeah, it's killer. I'm using more delay than I've ever used in my life with that thing on this set in particular. Like tons of delay on some sounds, and it sounds really great, really dimensional. If anybody's got TikTok, you can hear my sounds. We played a Simple Minds song yesterday, the classic one, and that song has a ton of delay on it. You can hear the SDE in full, and it's on Nick Carter's TikTok, I think, and he streamed a live video yesterday. You can hear us play that song, and I love the guitar sound. Actually, it sounds really good with it. That's like SDE 3000, loud and proud in spades. Yeah. JJ's got a Thornbucker 2 on order. I hope you like it. I use the Cure as example rock pop arrangement all the time. Simple but amazing. Totally love it. You let your hair grow again? I'm working on it. It's happening slowly but surely. Working on it. Mesa Guitar Guy says, I got my IRX this week and it's the missing link. That's cool. Yeah, I think it's going to probably solve a lot of problems for a lot of people. I mean, it's just like a simple, I said it in the video, but it's not unlike the PT15 in that it's a problem solver, a great piece of gear for a working musician that's just trying to get a great sound, wants something simple and not too complicated, but wants to incorporate a little bit of the, new stuff. When I say new stuff, I mean new technology, new digital stuff. Okay. Let's see. Are we going to get a rundown of the rig? Yeah, I was actually thinking of just like at sound check one of these days or whatever, just set up my little Shure stereo mic with my iPhone. I've got this great new little microphone. Do you guys want to see it? I'll show it to you. I highly recommend it. Give Shure a little plug here. This thing's killer. I was recording some band rehearsals with it, and it just works great. It's this thing, and it goes in comes with a little mini tripod, and then it's also got a thing for the phone. So the phone goes right in the mini tripod, and then this is the stereo microphone, left and right. It comes in this little bag kit. I highly recommend it. MV88, I think it's called. And it's made for, iPhone and iPad. And you can also just plug it into a computer and then record with it. a matter of fact, I could have used it right now for my voice, but I feel like that once again, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. The mic in the computer works just fine for what we're doing, generally speaking. Yeah. How much backup singing do you do? A fair amount, actually. Yeah, a fair amount. There's a super chat there. I'm gonna go to the bottom of the chat here and grab that super chat and stuff, and just move a little bit. I've been moving too slow. What kind of action are you using on your Sir? I'm a wuss, man. I try and get the action very low. Oh, you don't like it? That's interesting. Elkin likes it. Well, there's a lot to be said for that. The string will not vibrate probably the same or quite as much with lower action, even if you're not technically getting buzzing. So it's different for everybody. You could take it back to the tech and say, can you just raise it a little to get it a little more where it was, but with a great setup. That's not uncommon. I mean, like great guitar players like who am I thinking of? Oh God, I don't know. I'm spacing out on who I'm thinking of right now, but there's some really good guitar players I know that actually use a quite high action, surprisingly high, and it makes you play very deliberate and in a different way. It makes you play different things than you would if you had super shredder action, because you just can't do certain things. So you slow down. I tend to think it makes your playing a little more deliberate and a little bit more careful and or maybe reckless in some ways, because you can hit really hard and it's a little more primitive feeling and a little more simple, maybe it's you're not going to shred with it, but with high action. But some people like medium action and can totally rip. I've picked up some people that are they've got incredible technique and they can rip on the guitar, and then I pick up the guitar and I'm like, man, it's kind of hard to play for me. I'm kind of a wuss. I don't have like super strong hands, I feel like. So I've gone to 9s now. That's the other thing. I was using 9.5s for years, and I recently switched to Paradigm from Ernie Ball. Knock on wood, I've had one set on my guitar for all of rehearsals on my main red signature Sir, and I didn't break string on that guitar. So, and it's a lot of use. So I'm sure it'll happen eventually. But the Paradigm seemed really good, and they're 9s. I set up the guitar for 9s, and just like, that's it. I'm going to play 9s now. Fine with it. Yeah. SDE was introduced about a week after purchasing a triple delay. Maybe we'll sell it after a couple things and a couple things to get the SDE. It's really good, man. Yeah. Dory says, thanks for doing the show. Hey, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Okay, just reading through the just bought me a 65 Creamback, says Van Boingo, to replace the 7080 in my DSL. My ears are so happy. Yeah, that's a better speaker for sure. Have I become an old fart? Get off my lawn. No, you did the right thing. They're a good speaker. Watching from Liverpool. What's up? I miss Liverpool. My son is in Cambridge Uni right now. You mentioned you were in Liverpool a few years. I've spent a lot of time there actually in the last few years because the band that I play with over there is based there. So I tend to go there and play at least a couple shows at the Philharmonic and also rehearse sometimes there. And, a lot of time in Liverpool. It's cool. I like Liverpool. It's actually one of my favorite cities in the UK. Cold and windy and stuff, but it's a nice size place, nice size city with a lot of options to eat and shop and do everything that you want to do. It's a I don't know. I just really like it. Actually, it's a cool place. Currently using Quad Cortex as the heart of my stereo rig with parallel wet FX. So far, so good. Awesome. Yeah, Quad Cortex is a really great thing. Trying to think about rigs and going different directions and stuff and different things that I got to do coming up over the next 6 months or so. And it's like the Quad Cortex is definitely going to play a role. I'm using it out here too, by the way. I'm using just for acoustic. But it sounds great for my acoustic guitar as a preamp, a little bit of subtle EQ. I'm adding the smallest little bit of reverb with it. And it is, I have to do something where I use a acoustic guitar and a Gracie stand for one song. So it's actually going into a second input on the quad. And so it's kind of unique how I'm using it, I think, but it's really good. And then I've got my main acoustic patch. I have a solo boost that's up 4 dB for little lead melody things more that have to pop out on some of the tunes. And it's oh, I want to tell you about something else as well. But it's switching between the two patches beautifully. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm actually doing for the very first time on stuff that we're playing to a click and everything. It's doing all my MIDI switching. So that took a while to do, but oh my God, it's amazing. Like it's all working, and I hope it, knock on wood again, it doesn't, but the MIDI, so I'm literally just playing and my pedals are all switching automatically, or my effects and my amps and everything. Pretty awesome. I can just play and keep my eyes on the guitar, and it's so trippy. It's like it just I've never done it. It's not uncommon in the pop world, and which I am at the moment. And but it's really a trip the first time you do it. I don't know if anybody out there has ever done it before. Where the main computer is doing all your switching. It was really easy to set up, I'll say, with my my Musicom switcher. I've got it in song list mode. So essentially what goes on is I've got songs in the Musicom switcher are basically, you can give each song a title, and then you decide in that song what presets you want to use from your switcher. So, so this preset, this preset, this preset in this song, right? Well, the song in the set list, let's say you've got 35 songs or whatever in a set list, you send it a MIDI bank number for the song, and then you set a preset number for a patch change number for which preset you want to be on within the song. So say it's the third song of the set, you'll send bank number 3, and you want to start on patch 1. Well, you send it bank number 3, patch 1. Now in the chorus, you want to switch to patch 2, for a different sound. Bank number 3, patch number 2, or program change number 2. And we went through and programmed all that stuff for every single song. This is why, I say I've been busy. But in practice, it's really great. It's really cool. And I do really like it. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Do you feel that those, what were you trying to say? Those something in the IRX give, tubes. I see. In the IRX give so aren't we all like good at getting good at deciphering what folks are trying to type or use voice text for lately? Right? It's part of the skill of in 2023. You got to get into it. I'll grab that super chat that just disappeared. Sorry about that. So the tubes in the RX give the feel a lot better than purely digital. Well, there's something to it. It's a true tube. Dave basically told me it's copied from his amp. Like the preamp is essentially what you've got is the first 2 tubes of a Friedman head in there. And then you don't have the phase inverter, because there's no power amp. So, but you've got the full front end copied of basically, the Plexi style channel and then the BE style channel. That's what's in there. Kind of, I guess, probably akin to his small box amp. That's probably what it's closest to, the IRX, if you had to compare it to one of his amplifiers. I'm not, that's just me saying that. He didn't tell me that, but that would make sense because it's got the Plexi channel and it's got the BE channel. But anyways, there's something to it where it's just simple. It sounds, you turn it on, you put all the knobs on 5 and you play it and you go, yeah, it's like my PT15. You turn it on, you put all the knobs on 5. The first cab sim that pops up, you can, run it direct and you just play a chord and go, that's cool, like without doing anything else. And then from there, you're just finding your tone by tweaking, turning on and off the bright. The knobs go maybe to 4 or 6, but probably not that much further in either direction. And, it's the same thing with his box that he made. It sounds really great. It feels really great. And it's just easy to use in the same fashion. So, yeah. Let me grab these super chats. There's one there. Donnie, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Cole, thanks for being awesome. You're awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys. You're all awesome. Thank you for being here and hanging. Thanks for your super chat. Appreciate that. And can you summarize why you use QC over Fractal? I've used Fractal. It's not that I haven't used it. I used it quite extensively. I did whole tours with it with Melissa Etheridge, and used it both direct as my only tone source, and also into a power amp and cabinet. I was doing this, modeler into tube power amp and cabinet thing like over 10 years ago, and it served me really well. It was good. I would say right now, it's probably what I said earlier. It's the simplicity thing. I mean, there's something about the simplicity of what I'm doing. I'm not running really complicated setups and rigs anymore, really. I mean, it's like I'm not like, multiple amp sims and different things at once. It's just generally I'm using like one sound, and probably a big one with the QC, a deciding factor. And yes, I could do this with a Kemper too, to probably pretty similar effect, but it's the capturing thing or profiling thing. Like I could put my own amp in there. So what I do with, for instance, with Five for Fighting, when I was using the Quad Cortex on the last 2 summers, both tours, I used Quad Cortex. When I used to play with Five for Fighting back in the early 2000s, I used a Top Hat King Royale. It's an AC30 style boutique amp. It sounds great for that band. I don't know what it is, but something about the piano, the bass, drums, that arrangement, and then an AC30, it just slots right in there. That's the right sound. It's like a Fender sound, probably work okay too, but it wouldn't sit quite the same. The mid-range of the AC30 style sound, just where it sits, it cuts through the low end of the piano and the high end. When you're playing with a piano player like John, it fills a lot of space. The Elton John school of kind of piano playing with, chords with extensions and stuff like that. And you got to find your zone. So the guitar for me is just slot. You can't have a big Fendery sound, big Fendery semi overdriven or basically clean, but a little grit or all the way clean. That great big Fender thing with the mid scoop, you disappear in a mix with piano. It's just something about it. But an AC30 just right up the middle. So it's the right choice for that group, I find. And I always liked my guitar sound when I used a real King Royale back in the day with them. So I got another one because I always really liked that amp and I missed my King Royale. So one came up for sale. I got it really cheap, like $1,200-1,300 bucks. It was a good deal. I felt like it's a great sounding. It's my AC30 basically. I don't have a vintage AC30. I've got one on loan, but it's not mine. So that's my AC30 for now. I thought I'm going to try and profile this and see. It was an experiment. Like, can I use the quad maybe and not take this amp on the road? We had some fly dates and things. And it's like, oh, I ran AC30s, but so I did it. I profiled it. I made a couple profiles exactly the way I used to set up the amp back in early 2000s, 20 plus years ago with that band. And it sounded really good. I put the sounds in there and I started adding some delay and stuff, a little compression here and there. And I made sounds for the songs. I was playing along, in my studio. And I thought, I think this is working. And then we did a couple rehearsals for the first summer tour I did a couple of years ago. And I thought, I'll just get a power amp and a couple, something small, a couple of cabinets. And then I can rent cabinets on the fly dates. And I'll just bring in a couple 112s. That's all I need, and set up a couple Sur 112s. I didn't even really pick the cabinets that carefully. I used a V30 loaded one, and I had another one that had a speaker we were experimenting with called a Grey Wolf. And plugged into those two and set the cabs kind of wide behind me, and we kicked into rehearsal, and I didn't barely have to change anything from what I'd set up in my studio. It just sounded good. And so long story short, it was the ability to capture my own amp that I really wanted to use in a simple, small package that the QC is. I was getting a great result, and it's like, I can throw this thing in my backpack, and this is awesome. So that's really what it was. I've got an Axe 3. It's in my rack in my studio. It's great. But could I get close with their AC30 and stuff? Probably, if I went in and I dug in. It's a great piece of gear, a lot of people are Axe FX devotees, and rightly so. They do really well with them. But there was something about the amp that I'd bought that I wanted to put it in the box and see if I could get that sound and take it with me. And I did. And then once Yeah, you kind of pick a rig at the beginning of every tour. For this tour, maybe I'll use this, and then you go with it. If it's really not working, you'll switch it up. But if it starts working, and you're like, yeah, this is cool, you just go with it. And that's what I did. I just went with it and plugged it all in and got it dialed in. And then the next year, last tour came about, and it was like, worked last year. Why, it's almost like when you wear clothes that are cool, and you wake up the next day, and you're like, worked yesterday, maybe we'll just put it on again. you know let's not overthink this. Or maybe it's more like the Steve Jobs. He used to wear the turtleneck, so he doesn't want to think too much about what he's wearing, because it's like, it's everything you do, every decision you make. And I'm finding that right now, every decision I make is mental energy output, right? So even though I just said like all the stuff about the programming and how cool it is, it was a lot of work, and it is mental energy output. That's like, okay, that was exhausting, actually, like, doing all that, but it's cool. It's really cool, but it does, there's always a price. So I don't know. There's something to be said for plugging your guitar into an amplifier with nothing else. A lot of contradictory stuff going on here today, but thanks, Pete, for your channel and these live sessions. Getting back into playing after decades away from guitar, a lot is going over my head, but I'm learning. Hey, it's great that you're back. And yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Don't get overwhelmed by all this stuff. There's no reason to. Some of the best guitar players that I really admire out there kept their scene very simple and concentrated on the music, and didn't get overwhelmed by equipment. When I think about Malcolm Young or Stevie Ray Vaughan or Tom Morello, I mean, different kinds of players, but all had very simple rigs that they used to great effect for a long, long time without really deviating, and it didn't affect their creative output or their popularity or their ability to come up with new music that was satisfying or any of that stuff. So it's a lot to be said for it. Yeah. Some wise ass asked if they could put a V2 hot mod in an IRX. That won't fit. And Dave would probably be like, don't do that. I mean, there's plenty of gain in it, with the boost and all that. So when you play songs in different tunings, do you prefer another guitar already tuned or retune on the fly? Oh, always another guitar tuned. I mean, if you have to, you can retune, but the anxiety of retuning while the crowd is waiting for the next song is not, I don't like that. And generally, if you're doing a weird tuning, it's like, maybe it's got a distinct sound too, so it's best to have the guitar dialed in and use the right guitar for that song. When I think of like Cashmere or something, that was an odd tuning that I always, when I did it on the road at a classic rock show, I always had a guitar just for that song. My red Surti, I would play on that. And it was always nice, to have something dialed in. What do you keep in terms of guitar and amp? If the rest had to go, great question. I mean, it would be my signature stuff. I'd like to keep 100 in a PT15, and like I say, some sort of AC30. If that's all I had, three amps like that, I could do everything I need to do for the rest of my life, probably. And a guitar, my signature guitar. That said, I got the Aura out here, and I'm playing that thing a lot. What a great guitar! I've fallen in love with that thing. It's such a good instrument. Such a good instrument. Yeah. Am I the only one who wishes that the tubes were visible in the IRX? They're pretty. I think you can probably see them through the sides. No, isn't there? I can't remember. It doesn't get very hot, which is nice. In my experience. Okay. Have you discussed the VH at Donington footage? God, it's good. Have you seen it? I wonder what I guess you've seen it. Wonder what you thought of it. Yeah, kind of expected a whole video on it. Well, that's not really the kind of stuff I do, but I did watch it, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I watched it on my TV at home, actually, and through my sound bar subwoofer, but on a big screen. And man, it really captures that band at the height of their abilities, I think. And it was, One of the thing about 1984 that some of the tempos were getting pretty fast on some of the older stuff and whatnot. But I saw that tour. That was the only time I ever saw them with Dave back in the day. I saw that one 1984 tour, and it was awesome. And they just were like this force of nature back then. Whatever they were doing it right, and it was, I don't know. Eddie was amazing. His solo on that is amazing. When he turns the volume down, he's kind of playing some clean stuff, messing around. He's just like, he's so fluid at that point. Uh, the guy's hands were just so together, and not that he wasn't fluid for most of his life, but geez, he was firing on all cylinders, at that point, and they all were, and it was just so, I don't know, their whole, it's just such a special band, their whole musicality plus rock and roll party thing was really special. And I loved the footage. I thought it was great for sure. It's very inspiring. What do you do to work off all those foo-foo lattes you seem to live on? What? What do you do to work off all those foo-foo lattes? What do you mean work off? To pay for them, or like calories? I just drink them with oat milk, man. It's like, oat milk or almond milk, that's it. Sometimes regular, if that's all I can get. If I'm overseas, I do better. Do you guys ever find that travel? Do you ever find that you do better with like regular milk and stuff over in Europe? I'm fine with like milk in it's not bad here. Like I don't feel like I'm uber lactose intolerant, but I definitely am somewhat. And I just feel like when I go over there, I have no problems. Like, let's say France, the dairy, no issues. Over here, all weird. That's going to start a storm of comments about, additives and things, I think. But yeah. But anyways, oat milk lattes, that's my jam. And sometimes I'm just drinking coffee black these days, just for the effect of just kick my ass a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Which pots do you prefer now? I don't know. Sir has one that they're using that's not Burns and not CTS. And I'm not sure where they're from, but whatever they are, they're amazing because they make no noise. And I've got them in both my signature guitars now, and I think it's what comes in my signature guitar now at this point. They are like, I mean, CTS was driving me friggin' insane for a while. Like noise after a month, after like a month. And they're just garbage. They're garbage. They're garbage, whatever's going on with CTS. Garbage. Can't say it enough. Garbage. Hate them. This pot that I've got in my guitar now, I've had in there probably for over a year, and it is dead silent. It just works perfectly, and the taper's nice and the whole 9 yards. So that doesn't help you out a lot because I can't tell you what it is. I'm not sure the brand, but whatever's going on with Sirs, rest assured the pots are great if you get one. They've because they were tired of it as well, obviously. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of got to be difficult when you're a amp and guitar manufacturer, and it comes down to these, only what's available is what you can get. I mean, that's certainly the case with tubes, and it seemed like for a while, at least, with pots as well, and they fail and they're crap, and then it's like you want to make this great amp, but it doesn't matter if the every other part on, it's only as good as the weakest link, right? So, yeah. Anyways, we've got great pots now, lying on these great pots. I had a King. I by the way, I don't mind the Burns. They're okay. I've got one in my, my EVH has those, and they seem pretty good. They get a little noisy, but nothing like the CTS. I mean, it's over 10 years old. It's 13 years old, the one in my Wolfgang, and it's got a little scratch to it. I should probably just clean it or something. It'll probably be fine. But yeah. Have you seen Sphere at night while in Vegas? I saw it a little bit, yeah, from a distance. I haven't been over there, but I'd love to go see the U2 show, actually. But tonight's the only night that would happen. I don't know anything about tickets and stuff. And if you can't tell, I'm a little exhausted. I'm like tired, and I just kind of want to take the day off and maybe no music, And like, even though that would be amazing, like I've been in, a week or whatever of 10-hour rehearsals, or more than a week. Actually, we did 6 music rehearsals in LA, had a few days off, and then we just did another 5 here. So like it's like 11, days of long days of music rehearsals. I'm just a little musiced out is all it is. You need a little break every now and then. So, love to see that show. I'm sure I would really enjoy it. Maybe I'll feel different in a few hours, but I don't even know if it might cost $400 to go or something. So I don't know. I'm currently running quad cortex stereo rig with wet effects in parallel, considering getting a third cab to try wet, dry, wet. I don't think it's really. You could, but with the type of rig you're using with a quad stereo rig, wet effects in parallel, so you got a power amp of some sort, I guess. You might dig it. It's really cool. I mean, but I love stereo too. I feel like it's like I love stereo. I love stereo. Mono is cool for some things, but I'm a stereo. I just love stereo. It's really fun to just have that depth and dimension, especially if you got to use in-ears or something. So I'm a stereo aficionado. But the difference between stereo and wet, dry, wet, for me personally, I run stereo. Wet, dry, wet, very cool. It's great. And if I was Eddie Van Halen, and I could have those three cabs, and I'm, the only guitar player. There's no keyboards or, I need a big ass sound and I want it to be really defined and wide, and just massive. Okay. Then I'm going to do it. But I think for most of us, I don't think so. I think stereo is complex enough. Yeah. Let's see. It's 1:11. I'm going to hang for a little bit. I just need to send a text. So just doing my live stream. Yeah. Okay. Looking through your comments. Preston says, I love the deep dive in modelers. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting for a lot of people, to get in there and tweak, Yeah. Yeah. After a deep dive, I usually set a model to be as close as my real rig as possible. Yeah, I did. Well, that's what I always did too. The thing that I always recommend to people is put it on an AB switcher with your real rig, whatever that looks like. For me, it was generally using my amp into load box, or maybe 2 amps in stereo with my pedal board into 2 load boxes, coming into 2 channels in my interface. And then I could listen to my amp, like basically what it sounds like live with the gain straight. I'd have the amps churned up and everything. And then I could AB to the Axe effects or whatever I was using. This is like when I set up Axe effects patches years ago. And I would try and make them sound as close to identical as I could, and just copy all the patches and banging back and forth with an AB. That's the way to do it. If you can have that direct one-to-one comparison with your real rig that you basically like, and then you're trying to set up, say, like a modeling rig that substitutes for it, you can get very, very close and save a lot of time by doing that one-to-one thing. So I suggest doing that if you're trying to set up a modeler to sound like the real thing. What tubes are in the IRX? Just 12X7s. You mean what brand? They're probably JJ. Not 100% sure, but that'd be my guess. Some sort of JJ is what they ship with. I don't know that for sure. There's other stuff that, like there's PS Vane made 12X7s that are supposedly getting much more consistent and better. And, I know that Boutique or, Friedman been using those in some positions and stuff like that, and for some things. And it's taken a while for their tubes to get consistent, but evidently it's happening. They're getting better. So the tube thing is interesting. Seems like it's not as a big deal or scary as it was a couple of years ago, but the EL34s evidently from PS Vane. Dave said to me recently that all the amps he's shipped with them, he's never had a failure. It's pretty amazing. Good EL34s evidently, so that's good news, I think. I'm just going to quickly make a cup of whatever is left over here. I think I drank all the coffee. So bear with me. How about English breakfast? Not my first choice, but better than decaf. Better than decaf. We don't do decaf. people that watch me on Sunday Live don't approve of decaf. Friends don't let friends do decaf. All right, I'm back. Decaf is evil. Evil, I tell you. Hey, from Newfoundland, what's up? How's it going out there? Had a good time there recently. Was that about a month ago or maybe more now? Anybody ever been to Newfoundland? That's not from there, like you, and anybody visited? It's an amazing place. It's fascinating, beautiful. Have you ever had to deal with pain in your hands? Great question. I have. I've had when I first went to MI many years ago, I was playing all of a sudden a lot, and I dealt with a little bit of probably tendonitis and stuff. And for me, proper warming up, ibuprofen was helpful. If I was having, it was just down to inflammation is really what it was. So a little ibuprofen helped. Proper warming up helped. Proper stretching, and also to string gauge. And I suffer a little from, I think, stuff in here, my elbow, and some nerve stuff. I don't think it comes as maybe a little bit of wrist stuff here, but I think a lot of it is coming. Because things like that can radiate from the shoulder through to the elbow, through all the points that all those nerves are traveling and stuff. And then the tendons is a different thing, tendonitis, where the tendon flows through like a sheath, and that becomes inflamed. And then it it's just as it's rubbing, it, causes problems. So you got to avoid all that at any cost. Proper warming up is so important. Just playing slowly and getting the blood flowing in my hands is what helps me, I find. Really, really important. Yeah. Let's see here. Oat milk is the one. Thanks for the Starbucks blonde roast. Game changer. It is a game changer, right? If anybody goes to Starbucks and you get, because everybody's always bagging. I just did it this morning. The crew, somebody was like, screw Starbucks. I was like, you know what? Try the blonde espresso. It's not bad. It's not the best I've ever had, but it's pretty damn acceptable. I find, pretty solid. It's real smooth. It's not as that bitey burnt thing that you get from Starbucks coffee. I can't stand that. It's like I used to like really dark roast stuff, and then I became a coffee snob, and now I'm a light medium roast guy, I guess, or sometimes medium dark, but it's got to be smooth, And yeah, the blonde roast is where it's at with Starbucks. It's my coffee tip. Okay. Did you get that book Tone Chaser about EVH? I did. I've read a little bit. Yeah. What do you think of it? I mean, it's kind of an interesting book for me to read. There's some neat stuff in there. I haven't gotten that into it, but I mean, it's weird because I knew him a little bit, right? And I got to hang out with him and stuff. So I've got my own. It sort of feels like I'm reading a book about my own sort of experiences, and I'm like, well, it's weird reading a book. I don't know, it'd be like reading if you had a friend and then, another friend wrote a book about that same person, and then you read their experiences, and a lot of them are probably somewhat similar or something. And it's like, I don't know. So I'm not saying it lost my interest, but I sort of was like, yeah, I don't know. Just kind of that was my little takeaway, Let's see what else we got here. Are you going to demo the new X Trident? Yes, I am. So new X Trident video coming. Like I said, I started it. I mentioned that earlier. I started it, but I wasn't able to finish it before I left on this. So it's going to be a few weeks and I'll get it done. I'm using my presets in it to make a demo video. I made presets for them a while ago. I've had a really good luck with pots from Seymour Duncan, which are Burns, and DiMarzio CTS. They last and have a usable taper. But are they any different? I just haven't had any CTS have been crap for me for about the last 5 years or maybe more. Just don't like them. Yeah. To clean pots properly, you have to open them up. Yeah, but they shouldn't. I've got so many guitars that never need the pots cleaned, like old guitars and stuff where they're just fine. Like, it's like, I don't want to have to clean it every week because that's what the CTS were like. Yeah, you spray them out, they get better, but like, if my position is, if somebody's buying my guitar, it's not inexpensive, and I don't want that crap on it. I don't want you to have to go clean the pots every. So I was really like, there was a couple of times where I'm just mad. I'm not mad at them, but like I would get a sir, and I would call them and actually call John and go like, this can't be, like, we can't, there's got to be another way. And they're like, well, actually, we're experimenting, because they frustrated too. I'm sure they get complaints all the time. But there's only so many games in town when it comes to pots, right? So anyways, they were experimenting. They're like, we've got one to try. I'm like, okay, let me try it, please. And I went out there, they put them in my guitars, killer, like, just great. I was like, those pots rule. Please put them in all my stuff from now on. I love them. So problem solved, I guess. But yeah. Paul says he has zero problems. Yeah, see, that's not my experience. I've had like CTS in recent years where I sprayed them out, and a month later they were making noise again. So I'm not good with them. Whatever's going on. Older guitars, no problem. They old CTS, but everything's not made. They're made in China, and they're just like not. I don't know what's going on. Their particular production process is not happening. Not saying pots that come from there can't be great. They can, but it's like whatever's going on with recent times, it's not happening. Not happening. Okay. What's your opinion on using pitch shifter pedals for drop tunings? Which ones are good? Well, I think the drop tune is isn't there a great algorithm in Kemper now? Everybody's raving about it. I haven't tried it yet. I should. I have one, so I should try it. I think, does the Quad Cortex have one as well? The pitch shifter in the plugin, the Morello plugin, that works really well. So I know Neural's got the try some of the. You can even download a free demo of like try the Tom Morello plugin and try that pitch shifter. That's probably the best one I've tried. The drop tune works pretty well from, I think it's called drop tune or drop pedal from Digitech. It's okay. Could use it in a pinch, It depends how clean you're playing, If you're doing like drop tune, Cookie Monster metal or something, and it's all distorted and you're just playing roots and fifths, it's one thing. If you're playing open position chords, it's like another thing, I saw, I think Corey recently, Congilo was using one on his, either on YouTube or on Instagram. I saw him playing with, I can't remember what it was. Was it the Kemper one? Or was it a drop pedal? Anyway, it sounded good, and he was playing only semi-overdriven. It was cool. There's always a little bit of latency, though, because there has to be, The one in the Axe Effect seems to work quite well. I've personally never done it. I've tried a couple times where I've been like, you know what? This would make my life easier on this gig if I did this. Let me give it a try. And I've done it and made the patch and then messed around. I'm like, nah, just got to go with the guitar and the right tuning, I've got a guitar out here in drop C sharp right now, for that very reason. But I have been thinking about, one of the things on my mind right now, and I'm trying to not think too much because I've been seriously mentally, I've been capacity for the last 2 weeks. But I am thinking towards the future and solving some issues. And one of the things is like attempting to maybe do that, like the drop tune pedal, incorporating something so that I can trim the guitar load a little bit, not have to have a, there's one song that I'm playing, on a drop tune guitar, and it's just not, it's too many guitars. I've got a lot of guitars out here right now. I'm sort of realizing it's probably too many guitars. So need to simplify a little bit. It's not, it just isn't worth the squeeze with so many guitars. So will Classic Rock Show come to Australia? That's an interesting question. I don't know if that's in the cards, to be honest. They've talked about Europe and US. So that seems like a definite in the future, but I've never heard talk about Australia, I don't think. What's okay, got here. Not that I wouldn't love to go, I would. Can you recommend a high gain distortion? You know what I'm using right now, actually, just for a couple sounds, is the I did a video of it, the Heavy Menace from Empress. And I put it on my board. I thought, I wonder if this will work better than my distortion channel for a couple certain sounds that are more, early 2000s rectifier or something. And I ended up trying it and going, yeah, it's radically different sounding. Like it's all bottom and, grindy and like very different sound than the Marshally thing that my amp has. So that's what I put on my board, the heavy Menace. It's an Empress pedal. It's great. You can see the video I did for it recently on my channel. Okay. Just reading comments here. Oh, somebody wants to see this piece of art that's over my left shoulder. That's funny. The Rover. It is kind of cool, actually. All right, what else we got here? I just bought a PT15 and cab. Oh, Ambicab Junior. That's interesting. Let me know what you think. You run the. That's interesting. You could run the output with no cab sim right into that Ambicab with some, or you could use the cab sim. Yeah, there's a couple different ways you could patch that in. That's an interesting idea, using the direct out on the amp. Stealth Parrot has been to Newfoundland many times. Yeah, it's really cool. What kind of picks do you use, and do you use different gauges for different guitars? So on the heavy tune guitar I've got out here, the drop C sharp, it's got the Hetfield Het set, I think it's called, strings from why am I? My brain. I think I need more sleep. Ernie Ball. It's an 11 to 50 set with maybe an 18 for a G, I think. So it's just a little heavier. I mean, it's 9 to 42. So 9 to 42 for all my stuff, standard, drop tune, drop D, 9 to 42. I subscribe to the Ty Tabor school of, like, I think he plays in drop C sharp. So he's got a guitar down a half step and then the low E's down to C sharp, but he uses 9s. He always sounds great. If he can make it work, the rest of us should be able to, right? So, but yeah, for the one guitar that's all in drop C sharp, that's just too slinky on the high strings for me. So I got the Het set. Seemed like a good, they're not 12s or something. That it's 11, but when you're going down a minor third, you need a little bit heavier if it's across the board, all the strings, I think. And then I've got a 12 string that's got medium light. And then on my acoustic, it's 11 to 50, I think, is what I'm doing on my Taylor. Nice Taylor acoustic I have out here. What a great guitar. Love it. It's a kind of their J45. They call it Grand Pacific or something. Might be mixing that up. But anyway, it's the 5 series, 517, I believe. It's a Tobacco Sunburst Taylor. And Taylor guitars are really great, man. They're just like great tools. They intonate well. They capo up well. The neck is nice and wide and playable. You don't have to futz around with them. You just put the volume and the bass and the treble all on 5, and they just sound good. They might not be the most amazing sound out there but I don't primarily play acoustic, and for me, it's like I just want a good sounding tool that sounds great and intonates and isn't, is tough, and I just love Taylors for that. So I'm a big Taylor fan, at least for the road. Guitars for the road they're just terrific. Your signature HSS has a Illich style Sir hum canceling air coil. Well, sort of. It's implemented in a very different way than Illich does it, but similar. Yeah. Why did you get the EMG Sig for the studio? It's not the single coils that are the problem. The single coils are actually quite quiet in my guitar with the hum canceling. It's the humbuckers, and that's kind of across the board for any PAF style or it. What the hot. I'll tell you what works in my studio that has a lot of, seems like, electromagnetic interference and stuff that can get in the pickups, especially when you're using gain. It's a problem. What works is the really high gain. Like, one of the quietest pickups that I have is a super distortion, the old DiMarzio super distortion. And I've talked to Larry DiMarzio about this and others, and it's the same metal in both coils. Like, in other words, it's the same, they got those Allen screw pole pieces, the old super distortions. So they're exactly like, the two coils are exactly the same. And it is friggin' quiet, that pickup. The hum canceling is spot on, I will say, in the original super distortion. I found that in these Fishman pickups I have too, that have two match coils with there's not a screw in a slug coil. Really, really good hum canceling. But a lot of humbuckers, like the classic kind of, one screw, one slug coil, and especially if the coils are slightly unbalanced, and part of the humbucking thing is the noise goes out of phase or whatever, and you lose the hum. That's part of what a humbucker did, and it just works best if the both coils are identical. It's not necessarily the tone you want, though. That's the problem. So for tone, I like the sound of unbalanced coils sometimes. And that's my Thornbucker's unbalanced. It's a small, but it's like, if you've got a screw and a slug coil and then you do slightly different wind on the coils and stuff, it's just part of the thing, man. You're not going to have the exact same hum canceling. So I'm not sure how many people know that, but not all humbuckers are created equal as far as hum canceling. Just because it's a humbucker doesn't mean it cancels the hum as well as some others. And there's not really a way around that, because you might like the tone of a pickup for certain reasons that will also negatively impact the hum canceling. So, and a lot of old PAFs are going to be like not 100%, or older, T-tops and whatever, like pile some gain on and they're not completely quiet. It's just kind of how it is. And so when you so on my guitar, my signature guitar, it's got hum canceling coil. That is only active on the single coil stuff. And it works great on the single coils, but then I can go to a humbucker and it's like got a little buzz to it. This is only in extreme situations. And I consider my studio bad because there's transformers and stuff outside, and I know it's those friggin' things, and they just, create problems with, we've all played certain rooms where pickups are really noisy, clubs or whatever. You go to a studio and it's not as quiet as you would hope, Go to another room, plug your guitar in, you're like, oh, I can kind of sit anywhere. And it's like, no, there's a lot of those variables that happen depending on where you are, and it just is what it is. So, yeah. We got 335 people online, lots of folks here. So I'll hang for another, just give me 1 second here. I think I got to go soon. Just 1 sec. Britt's coming to see me today because I have a day off, so I'm not going to get to see each other for about a month, or 3 weeks. So she's going to come hang. So I'm just checking on where she's at. And I'm going to go hang out a little bit, stuff like that. My little day off. So, oh, okay. So she's running a little late, as the airlines do. Okay, so I'm in no rush then. Let's see. CTS is on the phone. They want to sponsor you. CTS hates me. Yeah. Okay. B. Scott says, I'm all for grinding fresh at home Sumatra. Sumatra is a dark roast from Starbucks, but it's pretty good. I agree. I like that. I mean, the bean, it's got a nice, nice thing going on for sure. Starbucks used to do that single origin blend thing, snobby. And they had that thing called I don't have it anymore. It was some sort of preparation that was like, I don't know how it was, but it was steam, and it was like it was called some Starbucks people that are out there will know what I'm talking about, but you could go and get like a single origin Sumatra that was made on this special thing. That was really good. I mean, that was outstanding. I remember the first time going to Starbucks in Westwood and somebody saying, do you want a coffee made on the da-da-da-da? And I was like, what's that? It's like this new thing we got. They're like, just try it. It'll be the best cup of coffee you've ever had. And I'm like, in a Starbucks. And I'm like, that's a tall statement. Okay, give me one. And I tried it and I was like, pretty delicious, actually, pretty awesome. But that thing's gone away. I don't see them in there anymore. So they must have been too cost prohibitive or something to keep it going. Todd says his tele volume's getting very scratchy and twisting a lot doesn't help. Yeah, you got to spray it out. Some deoxid or something. Dirty pots are all the tone rage. I hate that. When you're, because the thing is that rolling down for clean, and then you're clean, and then you want to come up a little bit, something to kill the vibe of a nice part, especially if it's compressed and stuff. And rolling the pot up and down. I hate that. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. It makes me like actually go into somewhat of a I get rage feelings as I'm playing. It doesn't feel good. Careful if you use naproxen stomach ulcers. Yeah, or any non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I used to use. We were talking a little bit earlier. For those that don't know why this is relevant, we were talking about problems with hands and issues, and I was mentioning I use a little ibuprofen back when I would get, just what felt like muscles in my arm, you know, uh, and yeah, for sure. You don't. It's not stuff that you want to take. It's better than Tylenol, that's for sure, which is terrible for you. But and it doesn't work anyway for anti-inflammatory. But yeah, I'm an Advil person, or naproxen, one of those. But yeah, small quantities. If you're feeling like you have to take a bunch, then you got a bigger problem. Probably better to go for some. I always recommend, if anybody has any problems with their hands, go see a sports medicine person, a physical therapist. To go, find a good sports medicine. They've dealt with all the problems when it comes to tendonitis and any kind of overuse injuries, and they'll put you on a path to, that's a good thing to do. They'll give you stretches and give you a little rehab stuff that you can do. What is your strings action and neck relief? Low action, super straight, a little bit of relief. I do it so there's just the smallest amount. When we're looking at the string between the first fret and the 22nd fret held down, say the G string, there'll be a little bit of relief at the 12th fret and even less at the 7th. Just a little bit of relief at the 7th, like the smallest amount. That's how I set it. I probably have buzzing worse than some people could deal with out there, but I just prefer that feel. I don't like it when I'm playing and I start feeling my fingers diving under the strings. It messes up with my, like, even yesterday I fell on my aura. It's not my aura, but it's John's aura, but I'm boring it. Sorry. It's on indefinite loan. When I was playing, and I could tell the neck had shifted a little bit since I got out here to Vegas, and it's drier and stuff. A little bit more relief in all my guitars yesterday. You guys ever find that? Isn't that interesting? Like, you can pick up, like, I'm like, ooh, this guitar's got a little more, relief than I like now. Like the next bowed forward a little bit. They kind of all do it. It's like some to a lesser degree, but I always find that interesting. Like, what happened? What's the humidity or whatever that happened that made that? And is it drier weather that makes the necks overbow, or is it wetter weather that makes them? I think wetter weather, more humidity, makes them go backwards. I don't know why. Like, in other words, you'll be, the neck will be, you'll have to loosen the rod. I think that's the way it goes. Love that Univibe sound Tim Pierce demoed the other day. That was so cool. Which pedal was it? I wonder. I've got there's a new vibe from Strymon that when I get back home, I'll make a video of in a few weeks. Yeah, I like Univibes. So you play Burden in My Hand with Chris. Would you show us the tuning and chords? Sure. Yeah. The tuning's pretty readily available for that on, if you Google like Soundgarden Burden in My Hand tuning, it'll pop up. I can't remember it offhand right now, to be honest. Is it C? I think it's a C tuning, or I don't remember. But it's it's really easy to play, much like a lot of Jimmy Page stuff. When you get the tuning right, it just falls under the fingers. So, but yeah, I could show it. There's a nice version of us doing that song on a Mexican TV show in late 2007. If you Google Mexico TV Chris Cornell 2007, you'll find a really well recorded performance on this kind of funny show that we did in Mexico City. It was Mexico City, and Chris's voice was so good that day. He was like really in top form, and the band sounds great. We've been out playing all year at that point, and probably on tour for like 8 or 9 months at that point. And was one of the last things we did that year. And there's a nice version of Burden on there. So, yeah. There was something about when Chris could just sing, like with Soundgarden, he had to sing and play, and that's always a little harder, So, and I think that was why he wanted 2 guitar players, because he wanted to be able to do things. He didn't want to play a lot. And when we did our version of, the band, it was of his solo thing, it was, he wanted to play acoustic guitar a little bit in the middle of the set. And other than that, he just wanted to concentrate on singing. So, and it's you can hear it in that performance of Burden. I think if you watch it, because he's not having to play. I say it's easy and falls under the fingers, but it is somewhat taxing because of the big bar chords that you have to play, and the rhythm. It's kind of relentless. You don't get a lot of breaks. So if you're trying to sing, I want my love today, would you cry for me? It's kind of a smooth vocal, right? And then you're trying to, you're doing this rhythm with the right hand the whole time while you're trying to. I imagine it's somewhat challenging. Yeah. So anyway. Love the acoustic tone from guilds, not overly trebly or shrill. I've never had a guild guitar. Yeah, I'd love to try one of these days, but just haven't had one. I've played a few, but not always other people's. They're 12 strings. It made some nice 12 strings back in the day, that's for sure. Yeah, if you didn't play guitar for a living, what do you think you'd be doing instead? Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of interested in medicine, to be honest. So, like when we get into these talks about, physical therapy kind of stuff, and I was just found it interesting. I'm going to go to med school or something like that, become a doctor or something, which is totally opposite from what I ended up doing, right? But I mean, I've always thought that how the grass is always greener, and you always like, what if I had done this totally different thing? And one of them was like, what if I'd stayed and gone to school? What would I have studied? And that seemed to make sense to me. There maybe would have been that. So, Chris says he puts copper foil shielding in all his control cavities. Totally killed the EMI. Works like a charm. It's never really worked for me. I mean, on some guitars may be quieter than others, but it doesn't seem to help in my studio. So I don't know. I mean, the pickup's still open, So like if you got a pickup and the pickup is the problem, if it's an open coil thing and it's just like wide open out there, like hanging out of it doesn't make sense to me how copper shielding would help with EMI getting in the pickup. You know what I mean? There's something about my bass, I was going to say Spectre. It's not a Spectre, it's a Warwick, but very similar. The pickups in that are all completely enclosed. It's some sort of active German pickup that's kind of like an EMG, but they are so quiet. It's like I've experimented, not that I ever would for tone, but I've run my bass into fuzzes and overdrives and distortions because I was like, does this pickup make any noise at all? And it doesn't. It's just like the quiet, like in my room, it's just like silent, like whatever's going on with the pickup and preamp system in that red Warwick I have. Dead quiet, like so cool how quiet it is. And they sound great in that bass. I should contact that company and ask them, like, what the heck do you guys do to make your, like, give me some insight into, because they're even quieter than EMGs and stuff. EMGs are pretty good. The Fishmans I found are the quietest for active, but I think it's more to do, the Fishman system, it's more to do with the totally matched coils that don't have a screw and slug coil. Because I talked to Larry about that, and I was like, is there anything to do with the noise in the super distortion about like the fact that the metal's the same in both coils? He says, absolutely. That was a big part of it, Oh, that's interesting. So something to think about. Food for thought. I just realized that I can make this page bigger and then I can read your comments easier. I didn't realize I could actually do that. Ooh, we learn something new every day. All right. I mean, I knew I could probably go in a settings thing and change it, but I can just do it pinching the screen. You learn new stuff all the time. Some people are probably like, you dummy. Why didn't you know that? Hi, Pete. With so many guitars, how do you manage input signal variation? I embrace it. I like it. I play different guitars for that, like different tones and different levels and outputs and things. Like I don't want everything to be the same. I want some guitars to pummel the amp, and I want other ones to be, cleaner and brighter and thinner and that kind of thing. I enjoy that now. The differences in guitars I embrace rather than trying to make them all really similar. Yeah. Chris says, I used to be a barista at Starbucks. Yes, hell does exist, and their coffee sucks. The real Les Paul, what's this? Hotter the pickup, the more noise. The real Les Paul was doing the opposing, making low impedance for a super clean. Um, well, that's not exactly true though, because a super distortion is fairly hot pickup, and it's one of the quietest in my studio, and it's because of the once again the totally balanced coils and the exact same metal in each coil. My Fishmans are also quite quiet. Yes, they're active, but I'll just say for passive pickups, I've found that, and this has been confirmed to me by Sir and many other people that I've spoken to about it, including Larry, who's obviously kind of a pickup expert, right? um, that the completely balanced thing is will get you the quietest humbucker, and it makes the most sense because what you're doing is the out of phase thing to cancel the noise. In order to, it's like we were talking about microphones earlier. Um, it's the closer you get to being 100% out of phase, right? The more the signal is going to completely disappear. Well, that's the same thing that's going on with noise cancellation with a humbucker. If you change one side from the other a little bit, as you do when you've got a slightly unbalanced coil, or say a screw coil and a slug coil, there's something about that now you're not able to cancel the phase completely as much, and that's what really affects you know the amount of noise. Now, a single coil pickup has none of that going on, and that's why it's brrr with gain, right? So, yeah, that's it. So it's not really true, actually. I have to say there, my friend. I'm going to correct you. Not the hotter the pickup, the more noise. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, with you're saying low impedance pickups, real Les Paul doing the opposing, making low impedance pickups. Think about low impedance pickups. They're really low wind, and then they boost using a preamp, and so they go about the noise thing a little bit differently. If you can shield the pickup and make it, yes, for sure, yeah, like really low output. Okay, yeah, there's something to that. Um, but like single coils, I guess. Yeah, okay, because they were single coils in there, weren't they? The Les Paul recording, is that a single coil pickup? I think. And they're just super duper low output, but then use a preamp thing to boost the output. And they were also sealed, so they were probably super shielded and stuff. I'm not sure. That's a different thing though, than what we're talking about, like high output humbuckers and stuff. Um, has this ever happened to you? You get all the killer gear and it sounds great at home in rehearsal, but once you take it to the club, the acoustics make everything sound like shit. Uh, yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, like, you're always, if the room's bad, what are you gonna do? It's like that's when in-ears almost become a positive. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, I've been really enjoying my ASI in-ears. So I've got a few different pairs of in-ears and stuff, and the ASIs with the side fills in this band, and using those, blending in a lot of the room, I'm really enjoying using, and then getting a nice mix. I'm actually very happy. I'm the happiest I've really committed to them, and to really getting the mix as good as I can get it, and tweaking at the desk. We've got snapshots for every song from the monitor desk, so I can get different levels of things. And I've been very, very happy the last few days with the mix and the in-ears. So that's a kind of a first for me. Feels really good to be kind of stoked on an in-ear mix. And a lot of it has to do with the ambient thing. I mean, it's no comparison when I don't have that. It's like having all that great ambient signal is just, it's been terrific. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Let me see here. Okay. Sorry, guys. Just answering a question there from the powers that be. Aquila says coffee does not work for me these days. If I'm sleepy, there's no way around it. I fall asleep. That's okay. I mean, sometimes you just got to sleep. What's the meme? It's like coffee, to wake up, and it's like, sorry, best I can do is anxiety. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, I need it in the morning to wake up, but if I haven't had enough sleep, then nothing. There's no way around that. Yeah. I should split pretty soon. It's 1:49. I got to jet and do a couple things before Britt gets here. So I'm gonna go soon, but I'll hang another 5 or so. This has been fun though. Have you played the Mesa California amp Tweed? Thoughts as a pedal platform? I haven't played it, but a lot of they're Fendery. A lot of the Mesa circuits are like, for instance, the Lone Star. I'm not an amp tech and I've never looked at a Lone Star, but even just in modeling world, when I've played, like, it's one of my favorite amp sims on the Helix, for instance, is their Channel 1 Lone Star sounds. And I can't get into exactly what's going on with this. I almost gave it away. But anyway, somebody I was talking to recently was talking about Mesa amps and how close they are to like how close I thought, like, what was going on with them compared to the PT100 clean channel. And I said, I bet the Lone Star is really close to the PT100, which is basically the Fender circuit. It's basically like a twin. And then when they did some investigation, that's actually true. It's basically a straight up Fender kind of thing. So, when they say California Tweed, it's like, you're going to get really close to, it's a Fender, and they're probably tweakable one way or the other. I would say it's a good pedal platform, with not having tried it. The Lone Star is, so, and it's probably not that far off from, if it's a Tweed thing. I mean, I wonder if it's actually like, you might look into it and see try and do a little research into the circuit and find out, because Tweed is a little different than, also substantially different than the blackface, sort of topology, and the way they're not as clean, and there's more mids and less of that hyper scooped, bright thing. So do a little research into it and stuff, and if you can, try one before you buy, always. What else we got here? Bonamassa says the pot and wiring harness on a vintage guitar is more important than the pickups. He's got a lot of vintage guitars and he's probably experimented a lot, so you got to take his thing into account. Yeah, I got nothing on that. I can't claim to know like he does. I will say, I mean, on my old Strat, I've got a relatively new wiring harness. I've got all the old stuff, but because of a couple different reasons, I opted a while ago to have Sir put, this is many years ago, Sir put what was at the time the Landau Classic pickup in the neck on my old Strat. It's now called the V63. It's the same pickup that goes in my signature guitar. So there's one of those in there, and then there's also basically a new wiring harness, a Sir wiring harness, and I've got the old stuff all put away. The original, I have all the original stuff, but my pickup just had a really low, the neck pickup had a really low resonant peak. I kind of want to try it again, just to see what I think of it now. But anyway, it just did, and I like what's in it now. It sounds beautiful. So if you watch that guitar, I mean, that's the same guitar you can hear in the IRX video, my old Strat. Sounds great to me. I mean, I don't know how much in that particular guitar the old pots would contribute. That's all I got on that, though. I mean, he's got a hell of a lot of experience with, both playing and with vintage guitars. So, I'd like to know kind of what he hears like with that, and what like the differences, versus, or different old caps or pots, or okay. What's out? A couple more questions here, and I'm going to split. PT15 plus Ambicab Junior works well with the amp sim. This rig works great. I use it for clubs. Awesome. That's cool. Is that your only cabinet? I wonder. Just curious. Yeah. Let's see. What we got here? Who are you playing with in Vegas? Well, I'm not playing here. I've just been rehearsing here, actually. Nick Carter actually he resides out here. So it was good place to rehearse so he could be by his family and stuff like that. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I think I should split you guys. Next week, let me see where I'll be. Take a look, and then I'll tell you what's going to happen with Sunday Live right now. Next week, Sunday, I will be. Well, it looks like it's kind of a day off, although it's a drive day. So I don't know what that means, to be honest, for Sunday Live. Maybe I might have to do a later one, but maybe not. Depends what time, if we're rolling in the morning and stuff like that. I don't know how far the drive is and what time we're going to get there. So I'll find out more of that info. And if I have to I'll try and put up a watch page. I knew I was going to basically be on time this week, so I didn't put up a watch page. But looks like it's kind of a day off. So similar to this, I'll be in a hotel and can probably, if it's not right at 11:30 or 11:45 or noon, as I got to this today, it'll be a little later in the day, but I'll hit it for sure. And this has been really fun, and I appreciate you all. Thanks for your super chats. Thanks for your engagement as always. And we will be a few gigs into the tour by next week, so I'll let you know how things went, stuff like that, and what's going on and what I've discovered. We're gonna play Kentucky a couple days, and then Nashville, and be on our way to South Carolina to play. So we'll be well into the tour by then. All right, everybody, have a terrific week, and be nice to one another. Take care out there. I'll see you soon. Over and out.